Have you ever wished that you could not only make the perfect sugar cookie, but that you could eat it in the midst of a diet? Well, today I will show you how to make the diet cookie. It's the perfect sugar cookie, but unfortunately it is far from being put on the list of healthy foods. What is the diet cookie? The diet cookie is a sugar cookie that is a very, very soft cookie. It stays very soft. It doesn't get hard around the edges or in the middle at all. It has two special ingredients, one in the cookie itself and one in the frosting. So what is in the diet cookie? We've got half a cup of butter or margarine. I prefer margarine. A lot of people bake with butter. You can use either. There's 1 egg, 2 2/3 cup of flour, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a cup of sour cream. There's one magic ingredient. 1 cup sugar, 1 teaspoon vanilla, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. So the first step is to cream together the butter, sugar, egg, and vanilla. And the main key to this is to make sure the butter is at room temperature. And ideally, that would mean that you would have pulled out the butter before you started baking at some point. I never remember to do this, so I usually pop it in the microwave for 10 to 15 seconds. And you want to make sure that you do that because you don't want the butter to be chunky in the dough at all. The second step is to sift together some of the remaining ingredients, the flour, baking powder, soda, and salt. This is going to make for a really dry mixture that is not going to stick together at all, and so just be patient because when you mix in the sour cream, it'll take a little bit, but it'll all come together and be the dough that you are expecting to see. So next is getting ready to roll out the dough. So you want to thoroughly clean the surface that you're working with. Make sure there aren't any crumbs or heavy cleaners on there. Make sure that when you do that you use a mild soap and hot water. Make sure you dry it well so that you don't get any of that in your flour and or dough. And I always like to prep my counter, make sure that I smooth out all of the flour there so that you have that surface that's dry and can handle that sticky dough. And also make sure that you do not add too much flour to the mixture and get it too dry, so just do that slowly. I like to roll out the dough, the thickness to be somewhere in between 1/2 centimeter to 3/4 of a centimeter. That seems to be the right thickness for the baking. And then I use, for myself when I cut them out, I use a small glass, just the open part of the glass. To me that's easy, it sticks a little bit less, and it's the right size for what I like. And I also use a thin metal spatula, as you see there, powdered with flour, so that you can scoop up underneath there, pick those up, and put them on the cookie sheet a lot easier. Now getting them ready to bake. So I like to, with these kind of cookies, you're making a lot at one time, and so I like to use parchment paper. Get my paper all cut, set out, all over the counter. I've got everything spread out everywhere. And that way, as I'm going and getting into that rhythm, I can just keep on moving. And then this is easy to just slide that parchment paper onto your cookie sheets. I like to have a couple of different cookie sheets so that I can keep that system going. Once I get them on the cookie sheet, I sprinkle the sugar on each one. That just adds a little bit of flavor. And then, as far as the shape themselves, for these they're just rounds. I just put them straight into the oven. But if you have a cookie cutter shape, you might consider putting it in the freezer for about 5 minutes. Here I put 8 to 9 because ultimately I end up rotating out with the time that it takes to bake so that I just keep the system going. But 5 minutes is plenty for that first one if you're doing that, and it just helps keep the shape. If you have a horse, it doesn't turn into a circle. So I like to do that. Place them in the oven at 350 degrees for 8 to 9 minutes, and then remove from the oven and let cool. Also, one other tip, if you have the 2 different pans, I have 2 different styles of pans here. It's hard to see. I didn't take a picture of those individually. The one on the left is a very thin Wilton's metal pan, and that cooked very fast at 8 minutes. The other one was an air-baked pan, and it took a little longer at 9 minutes, so you just want to be mindful of what kind of pan you're using and really watch the cookies. They don't get golden brown, so you just kind of want to make sure that the consistency is about what you want to feel. They're just slightly firm when they're done. Next, what is in the frosting? We've got 1 package of powdered sugar, which is 2 pounds, as you see there in the picture. 1 cube of soft butter or margarine, and again, I used margarine. 4 ounces of softened cream cheese. And it is very important to get both of those soft. Again, you don't want butter chunks in your frosting or cream cheese chunks in your frosting, although cream cheese chunks are less threatening than the butter, but I would just make sure that you get both of those very soft. Then a teaspoon of vanilla and half a cup of warm milk. So again, if you don't have time to set those out beforehand, then you can microwave the butter and cream cheese for 10 to 15 seconds. Then you mix all the ingredients together and you have your frosting, and it's a really nice, thick, and yet easy to work with texture. And then you can decide what you want to do with your coloring. If you want to pull some out and leave it white, separate it out into tiny bowls and do different colors. For my project, I only needed a blue, so that's what I have there. Now to put it all together. So once the cookies are cool, you can evaluate how you're going to be decorating them. The most important thing in this process is if you're going to use sprinkles, that frosting sets up fairly quickly. It can crackle. You really can't re-smooth it over or do anything like that, so you want to make sure that if you're going to add sprinkles, you're ready to do so right after frosting. Here I used a butter knife to frost. I like that, but there's other things that you can use. So make sure that you get the cookie fairly well covered, and I like it kind of thick on my cookies, so I put plenty on there. And even after frosting all of the cookies, I have a container of frosting left. It makes quite a bit, so you can be generous with it. And then the finishing touches. So you can add any other decorations. Most of the time when I make these, I leave them just like this with the sprinkles on top. But this time I wanted to do some writing on them. So I bought the glitter gel pens, which are easy. They're no flavor, so they don't mess with the flavor of the cookie at all. And you can also put frosting in a baggie and cut the corner if you don't have any supplies. I've done that and written actually pretty well with those. And then that's easy cleanup too. And that is the diet cookie. So although we're still searching for the perfect cookie to eat on a diet, this sugar cookie recipe is one that warrants breaking any diet's rules. And I have samples.